Hey, welcome into another edition of the Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. I am back with you this week, Matthew Bartlett, Director and Managing Editor at the Roost, with JP Heath, Rice Owls voice, here to talk about another Owls game, a double Owls game, as we preview Rice versus FAU. You see what I did there? Yeah, we're ready. So how goes it, JP?
Much better now. A little R&R for the Owls and us here on the preview, but it is a good time to be an Owl of the Houston variety.
Yeah, I will say so. Obviously, Rice coming into this game at 3-2, and I know that ourselves and everybody else kind of, you fill out the schedule and your exercise before the season of what you think might happen and what you hope might happen. And I think 3-2 going into the bye week would have fallen under probably best case scenario from what you and I might have been expecting for this team. So as we do every week, I'm going to let you cheat a little bit. Your 10,000-foot view, your final thoughts, one thing that you thought was interesting about the UAB game before we kind of sneak ahead.
Oh, man, as usual, I'll cheat off my neighbor here. I'll give you two answers in one. Exactly what you said, my friend. 3-2 at this point of the year. The hardest part of the schedule is like it is most seasons, is that front part, this game included. So you're not out of the woods just yet, but 3-2, you have to take it. You want to get greedy, as I kind of joked with Coach. You could pick nits. You want to be 4-1. There is an avenue. You look back. That's just the nature of us in sports, whether covering it or watching our own teams. But the UAB game, like we said a few weeks ago, the Louisiana game was the biggest game, the biggest win for Mike Bloomgren. And you hope that would be topped against Houston. It almost was. But then it was topped against UAB. That was the biggest win because of the way the not so subtle shot you bullied around UAB. See what I did there? See what I did?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, that was fun. And then I don't know if you happened to partake in any Conference USA football this past weekend when Rice was off, but UAB went out there and bludgeoned Middle Tennessee. Final score was 41-14. I think it was like 38-7 at halftime in that one. So UAB might be a pretty good football team.
Yeah, Trey Shropshire had a really good game, and McBride, no surprise, he had another good contest. So apologies on behalf of at least these two that wear blue and gray sometimes. Apologies to the Middle Tennessee folks because Rice really woke up. That's the first thing I thought when I checked. The first score I saw was the halftime score, because even though we're off from working, it's hard to call what we do in our jobs working because it's so much fun. But I was like, oh, buddy, the Owls really woke up UAB. But Middle Tennessee's no slouch as well. But just when you think you can predict college football, there you go again. But yeah, excited, and what a trip to kind of initiate this so-called second half of the season we have coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were kind of looking through at the schedule and talking with Coach Bloomgren yesterday. This is the only team still remaining in Conference USA that Bloomgren has yet to face as a head coach with the Owls, and it's one of the handful of teams that is coming with Rice to the AAC. So maybe we will have more Owl on Owl. We got another Owl with Temple, and then potentially Kennesaw State Owls coming in backfilling in Conference USA. We're not going to get there, but there's a lot of Owls in college football right now.
You always have to have an Owl in Conference USA. I don't know if folks knew that, but that's why they're
bylaws tucked away. But the FAU Owls, who we're here to talk about a little bit, and transitioning, Middle Tennessee had that big win over Miami, tying in another Miami product. We'll start on offense with FAU N'Kosi Perry, former quarterback at the U, who had a couple good games while he was there. And I guess the orange of Miami has transitioned to the blue and red of FAU, and kind of from my memory and kind of from what I've looked through, had a okay first year at the helm as the quarterback of those Owls, and has really kind of settled in to his spot this year. I know going into the season, the quarterback landscape in Conference USA seemed particularly uneven. There was Frank Harris at UTSA and Chris Reynolds at Charlotte, and then just throw them in the air. Who knows for the remaining 9 schools? There's an argument to be made that N'Kosi Perry is playing as good as anybody, maybe sans Frank Harris right now. So one of the better quarterbacks that Rice is going to face in this league, and he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink of the FAU offense. What can you tell me about N'Kosi and this offensive attack Rice is going to see?
He's up there. When I was prepping the charts and operator error, I'm not able to give you the much anticipated preview of Gordy, so you'll have to wait till later tonight, early tomorrow morning, Matthew, to actually lay your eyes on the beautiful young lady. But Perry, as you mentioned, Miami transfer, so he comes with a great pedigree, but 252 passing yards a game. He hasn't really put it together all that much, but that's scary because what you just said is true too of the alpha dog in Conference USA, Frank Harris. Perry is right behind him. There's an echo in here, like you just said. But really, I in these segments, you can speak with more authority because you're familiar with these guys. You see them every year, like our division foes, or at least some semblance of normalcy. But that's not the case at all with FAU. There's no one left with the staff for the most part, or some support staff still there, but no one with FAU. They've changed rosters and coaching staffs a couple times over and gone through the ascent all the way up to Lane Kiffin, and then Coach Taggart trying to keep them up near that top of Conference USA. They've been a fantastic program inside CUSA. But yeah, Perry runs it. And he's a guy that has that threat of the run. And what's scary with those dynamic, sounds like 5 years ago when you're talking about the two-way quarterbacks. He can throw it too. He's got a couple of great targets outside. But yeah, he's a guy that can hurt you with the run and the pass. He just hasn't stacked those games. And hopefully that doesn't start on October 15th when the Owls are there. The Rice Owls are there.
Yeah, good catch. And I think it's interesting with Perry because you mentioned he can run the football. He's somebody that when you look at him, I think he's one of the most, well-rounded quarterbacks that Rice has faced yet this year in the non-Caleb Williams USC future NFL draft star category. He can run the ball very well. He can throw the ball well. He's accurate. He's kind of coming to his own. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks this year. Through 6 games, that's 2.5 touchdowns per game. He's had at least a touchdown accounted for in every single game he's been the starter at FAU, which is pretty good. And he just kind of gets things moving. I think he's going to be the one that you got to kind of watch and account for. Rice has kind of done, I think they've fared pretty well if you go back. And I did this study on the site last year. I went back and looked at the top quarterbacks Rice has faced. I need to maybe dust that up. Rice has done pretty well when faced with some guys that can move the ball through the air and on the ground. So I think that's going to be interesting. But the one kind of thing that the dynamic about this offense that really intrigues me the most is, along with Perry, they're really balanced. UAB came in here and they were going to run the football, and they would probably throw it once or twice, but they were going to run the football. And that's exactly what we got. Houston, was going to attack through the air, and they had to hit a big shot in that game. We've kind of seen this coming, but, this is a rushing attack that averages right around 5 yards per carry. N'Kosi Perry somewhere around 8 yards per attempt, getting close there. So can move the ball pretty well. And I think it's one of those things where you can't sell out to, like, versus UAB. Rice could just put 8 guys in the box and make it do what they can. You're not going to be really able to sell out against this team. You look at on the running game, Larry McCammon and Zuberi.
Yes.
Zuberi Mobley. McCammon has been around. I'm getting up to snuff on Mobley, but these are 2 guys that complement each other extremely well, can catch the football too. So those are big pieces. And then you have LaJohntay Wester, who is I don't want to say jack of all trades, because he's more than that. He came in, he's played a couple of snaps on defense this year, their top receiver, does returns. If you had to circle one guy on this team that said, hey, don't let X beat you, I think LaJohntay would be X. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a nose for the end zone. He's already got the 8 touchdowns on the season. Wester does, and averages. I mean, he's not a huge. They have other guys that higher averages receiving wise, but Wester leads them in catches, number of yards, and touchdowns. That triple crown cataract you see with other teams, but sometimes you see it spread out. He's the big deep threat, like the UAB, Arsenal, Shropshire and company. There's one guy that is your deep threat. And a little bit like the Owls, they have one main receiver that's hogging the yards, like the Owls of Rice, the McCaffrey. I won't get used to this. I'll keep saying. Called the Rice FAU volleyball match a couple weeks back. It took me till like the 3rd or 4th set to finally say, oh, yeah, they're both the Owls. And somewhat sarcastic there. But they're averaging about 32 points per game, but they can rush it. They had Johnny Ford go down. I don't know if it's specifically with one type of injury, but he only played a couple of games and only got a handful of carries. But he was their guy, their big bell cow coming into the season. And they've really balanced it between Mobley and McCammon. Has done a really good job. He leads them with 518 yards, and like you said, for the team wise, he averages over 6 yards per carry. So. Yeah, this is not like the UAB game where Hopkins is really efficient. He is really good at what he does, making his decisions. But, yeah, the Owls, if they sell out for the pass, the FAU Owls, Perry and company, can beat them with the deep threats that they still have to stretch the field like UAB. And the Owls saw the balanced running game, UAB. But, FAU can beat you a few different ways. They don't throw to the tight end a lot, and I think they're happy with the depth in their offensive line too.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. And then another thing that has made them interesting is they've been pretty good when it comes to holding on to the football and not creating their own errors. And I say that is interesting because through their 6 games, their turnover margin sits at 0, which is pretty good. But they're actually one of only 4 teams in Conference USA that isn't negative on turnovers per game. Rice sitting there, 10 turnovers and 9 takeaways. So just there, the Owls and Owls back to back, not to be confusing. But so I think that's interesting because when you look at this team and you look at the teams that Rice has played their last couple games with turnovers and with penalties, I'm not going to say Rice didn't play well. They had moments in those games where they took advantage, especially with that win against UAB, but they've been bailed out with some help. This is a team that has been pretty disciplined this year, has not turned the ball over, and has one other thing that I think is interesting, which is a wild card here, which is they just have speed, which is something that is hard to quantify maybe when you look at a box score or a roster. But this is it, and this is a transition we've seen with the Rice Owls over the past couple years as this roster improves and gets better, being able to stretch the field and open things up. It's not just Wester. They have a handful of guys, a lot of Power 5 transfers that have come in and kind of made their marks. So those are a couple of things. But on offense, what do you see in that piece of how they match up with that speed, that athleticism, the number of different guys they have that can stretch the field against a Rice front 7 that I think we feel pretty darn good about at this point. And then, fellow Florida guy, Gabe Taylor back there on the back end for Rice.
Yeah, what a storyline there. Maybe we can talk about that more in depth in a second. But I talked to Gabriel Taylor, Gabe, whatever setting we're supposed to call him. Mama wants him Gabriel, but he doesn't mind being called Gabe too. But going home, he told me he got 60 tickets, but he expects about 100 family and friends there. at the game, and I clocked it. It's exactly 60.0 miles from Gulliver Prep, where he starred in football and basketball. Forget if he ran track. Don't want to cast assumptions there, but exactly 60 miles on the dot from Gulliver Prep to the FAU Stadium, which is gorgeous, Brother Bartlett. 1 point some odd miles from the beach, and it's got an arrow to the beach. We'll be looking out almost to the ocean. But yeah, you hit on a couple things I wanted to dive on as well. They get the ball out really quick. We like to unpack things a lot in our off-air and on-air conversations. But so I don't mean this in people that are just watching this. Like, I don't mean any ill will or harm, but don't look. They're fifth in the nation in fewest sacks allowed. And you might think, oh, that's just the most amazing offensive line. And it could very well be. I go into politician mode here. But they get the ball out so quick, and they play with such pace, with Taggart's history with Western Kentucky, Oregon, Florida State, and the like, that you don't get time to get to the passer. So having just a little bit of pressure is really going to help in this game. And the third down, they're tough to get off the field on third down. They're top 30 in the country, and they're right at 48% this season converting on third downs. Rice is really good on their money downs as well. But how do you try to mix in and get some pressure with a team that's able to not only protect the quarterback because they get it out so quick, but what happens after that ball is released? They're going to have a lot of short passes. But this is going to be another one where you've got to make those open field tackles, which, knocking on my wooden desk right now, hopefully that hasn't been a huge issue outside of the U.S. game at times. But that's another couple keys. The third downs, and then, they don't give the ball up much. And Perry might not have an owl paw print on him in the first half, talent. In the first, how do you get to Perry in that first half, and what adjustments they make after that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And you mentioned the third down. On offense, I'm going to kind of flip the field here, and we'll go over and look at the other side of the ball with the FAU defense. I think this is interesting because they're actually really, really good on the other side of the field as well when it comes to getting off the field on third down. Opponents against FAU this year are converting on 33% of their third down attempts. That's second in Conference USA to Western Kentucky. And I go on a limb, and I think the FAU schedule has probably been a little bit more difficult with UCF and Purdue mixed in there than Western. But is this a good defense? Actually, let's talk about that before I cast. I just almost went into not coach speak, but maybe being overtly kind. Let's talk about this defense because I think it's interesting. It's been a tale of who's showing up on any given Saturday. You look at their opening game against Charlotte. Chris Reynolds gets hurt in that game. They hold Charlotte to 13 points. They win 43-13. And then you're like, okay, FAU's for real. Maybe Charlotte's not. They go out the next game. They give up 41 to Ohio. They give up to 40 to UCF and 45 last week to North Texas. Gave up 28 to Purdue, who was playing their backup quarterback in that game. So it's kind of been up and down. They've had a couple big moments, and they find ways to get off the field and give their offense more opportunities. But big picture, kind of what's your read on the FAU defense? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they somewhere in between? How far to one end of the spectrum? What do you think?
I'd say more on the good side because, like you said, the competition that they have played, and from the top down, it bears saying it over and over again. Todd Orlando is their defensive coordinator, and those that somehow don't know, when Houston really got it rolling with Tom Herman, Todd Orlando was by his side. When Tom Herman, correct me on some of the timeline here, but I know he went to UT with Tom Herman. Didn't work out in the long run there, but had a stop at USC as well too. So a lot of movement. I was talking with Sanders Davis. We'll talk about this more on the broadcast coming up on Saturday. See what I did? Shameless plug there. That it's a lot of movement, and the Owls on offense, how do they counter all that movement? Because you look at their depth chart, and hey, a not so passive aggressive shot to USC, which did not want to give us the depth chart early, but they run so much. Like Coach Bloomgren said it, I think, and he said it on his show with me on Monday night. It's like what you see, and then post snap, it just changes to something totally different. There are a lot of pro concepts in there, so and whatever's working for Eddie Williams, he's doing it right because he almost doubles them, and they're the next leading tackler they have. He is all over the field. He officially plays a rover, so it's kind of like Trayshawn Chamberlain, the equivalent in the Owls, different scheme, but they run a lot of defensive linemen. I was talking to mentioned Coach Sanders Davis, O-line coach. Latrell Jean stands out to him as their one big defensive lineman. Hawthorne's really good up the middle. He's a Birmingham product, but they're going to move a lot of guys, and they're going to show a lot of different types of fronts and try to confuse you. So how does TJ McMahon handle something like that? And how do the Owls move the ball? They've been able to run the ball and get it into the end zone. And Ari Broussard, like you reminded us at the press conference yesterday, 4th in the nation, my gosh, and in rushing touchdowns. That's because they've been able to move the ball, and unlike the past couple years, they've been tough getting those rushing touchdowns. But I would like to be able to run the ball in between the 20s in this game against that defensive line, because they usher they go 3-4 deep on their 2 deep. Doesn't mean they're going to play that many, but they have so many different weapons and a lot of size and a lot of speed on that defensive front even too.
Yes, and I think that's an interesting point you made, especially with that Eddie Williams. He's having a big year. But if you go down the list and you look at the guys who are making plays and racking up the tackles for FAU this season, number 2 is Dwight Toombs. Number 3 is Armani Adams. That's interesting because those top 3 tacklers, none of them play well. If you're going to count Eddie Williams as a part of the front 7 on that rover spot, kind of sort of, he's the tweener, but nobody in a true line or a true linebacker spot. It's a bunch of guys who are going to play off the ball in the secondary. And that generally means when your top leaders and tacklers are on that 2nd to 3rd level of the defense, there's going to be some opportunities in the running game. And we saw North Texas, that last game out, they want to run the ball. They were very successful against FAU. This is something that I think Rice, the past couple of weeks has, for whatever the reason, on runs of down and distance longer than 1 yard, like they're automatic when they need 1 yard. Let's set that. Ari Broussard is the 1 yard go get him king at this point, maybe nationally. But when they need more yards, when there's more opportunities, Rice is not running for a very good clip, averaging 3-4 yards per carry, where they'd like to be up to 4 to 5. They'd love 6. They're not going to push it. But the Rice running game has kind of not been what's carried this offense the last couple weeks. It's been effective, but it's been Luke McCaffrey through the air. It's been TJ McMahon making plays, Bradley Rosner, Isaiah Esdale, Kobe Campbell with some big catches. You can argue that Kobe Campbell has made more big plays to help this offense move down the field than any running back outside of Broussard's 2-yard touchdown plunges, which is not something I would thought I would be saying halfway through the season. So the running game, I think there's going to be some opportunity here for Rice, and I think that's going to be big. And then kind of looking through to those guys in the secondary and on a whole, I thought this was really interesting. If you look at, there's a lot of different ways to measure explosive plays. This has been an FAU defense that's been susceptible to giving up the big ones. If they can hold you and they can get you to 3rd down, they can get off the field. But if you hit it right, things go boom. FAU is tied for the 2nd worst big play defense in Conference USA. You look at those home run plays, those plays of 50 or more yards, they've given up 5 so far this season. Only Charlotte has given up more, and Charlotte is probably widely regarded as one of the worst defenses in this conference. So they're good. They can get you down, but if things don't go right, things go crazy. Rice has given up 2, and they've had to play USC and Houston So I think this is a defense that Rice is going to have their opportunities. I'm interested to watch that running game and how they're going to be able to progress. What else, whether it be a player or kind of a matchup, do you kind of foresee being really important when the Owls and Owls take the field this weekend?
A lot of Owls, Matthew. A lot of Owls. Am I beholden just to a Rice offense versus defense? Or
I'll let you open up. We got a couple minutes left.
There's a lot, because I'll stick with what we just talked about. They've got to be able to run the football. They've got to start getting that. I know the modern analytics and stuff say it's not, and Rice is proven to this, that you don't have to rush for 200 yards a game like FAU does, by the way, to just be considered a great rushing team. Rice is not a bad rushing team by any means, but because they scored points that way. But how they run the football is big, and how the Owls' offensive line goes against that defensive line. I'll cheat on the test again and go off of what Coach Bloomgren said when I think it was Richard Dean of the Chronicle asked him yesterday at the presser, hey, what do you think is going to be the big matchup? And the two he said were in the trenches, offensive line versus defensive line, both ways. And he said out wide too. So this Owls wide receiver core, that'll be my 1A or 1B. Is the other one 1A? Yeah, this one will be 1A, I guess. Because we've seen Luke McCaffrey pass all the tests of being a legitimate big-time receiver at this level. What does the FAU secondary have to throw against them? And then you mix in the birthday boy, shout out Isaiah Esdale, turning 25 years young on Thursday. So he'll go out there, an older and still wiser man. But the way Rosner's played outside the USC game has been great. Owls have Nate Camper back at tight end. Does he get a little run? He's on the depth chart. So I'd say the receiving core too. I'll steal from coach's sheet and say the line play, because that dictates the running game, but also McMahon's passed a lot of his tests so far. He engineered the guys through a really ugly bully ball type of game in the last game, and how does he spread it out to the receiving core this week, and does he implement the tight ends more in this one?
Yeah, I'm super pumped about Nate Camper. He's a guy that I kind of highlighted in one of my preseason previews. I think it was from last season as a guy who can really stretch the defense. Tight ends aren't supposed to be able to run the way that he does. Big, lanky guy. I think they've called him, I've heard the giraffe in practice. I mean, whatever works. Rice doesn't have an answer behind Jack Bradley at tight end, not somebody who at least has done it for more than 4 weeks, which, they've kind of cobbled together and found ways to get production at the position. But this is a guy who can catch the football and can be a threat down the field. So you add that to that receiving core, and it could get pretty interesting. So Camper will be fun. Hopefully we get to see him. And then one more minute, just kind of big picture. Let's talk about the significance of this football game. I feel like we have the privilege of getting to do that now that, Rice is winning, and we can talk about it's not just salvaging things. At Louisiana Tech this weekend, they play against, I just went break. Do they play North Texas? What do we got? I had the schedule up in front of me.
I've got it here. My new fancy. You think you're the spreadsheet guy? I've got my.
I am. I'm gonna go North Texas.
They are at North Texas, 3:00 kick.
There we go. I bring Louisiana Tech up because they play North Texas. Louisiana Tech, North Texas, UTSA, and Rice, the 4 undefeated teams left in Conference USA. One of Louisiana Tech and North Texas has to lose. Just math, folks. UTSA plays FIU, so they might be sticking around more than likely. But there is a chance that Rice wins this game. They're one of 3 undefeated teams left in conference play as the calendar turns towards Halloween. Just what do you think about the significance of this one, the win on the road against FAU, a team you haven't played in quite a while for Rice, and then just how big this one would be, and what do you like about the Owls' chances?
I really like their chances. I liked what you tweeted out. I think it was you. You're in a good spot because any Rice news I get now, I think, oh, that's Matthew. That's just a Matthew tweet. Because the numbers in this one favor the Rice Owls, whereas the folks with the big buildings with air conditioning in the middle of the desert say it would be on the FAU side. But Rice has got to learn to win on the road. You know, in the past, they had struggled winning at home. They struggled winning on the road, too, at times. But now, I mean, they've lost 4 straight on the road since at UAB. And they've lost 7 of their last 8 road games since the win at Marshall. So they've had big road wins, but they haven't been able to stretch them together. So I'm glad you mentioned that. As we end here, the last time Rice was at FAU, it's one of my most fond memories. Dreyfus Jackson led a furious comeback for Rice. It was 2016. There was a 90-minute lightning delay. The guys had to huddle, go underneath the stands. And I wouldn't mind making this the first of 2 trips out to Boca Raton, wink, wink, if you know what I'm saying. And a W Saturday would go a long way towards that. See what I did there? See what I did?
Yeah, a real pro. JP Heath, voice of the Owls, on the call this weekend. We're going to be watching you in the booth. Please just go follow him on Twitter. That's where it's probably located somewhere else online, but that's how I find it. I wait for you anxiously to tweet that out on Saturday afternoons, and then I click on it and kind of have the side-by-side of y'all in the booth calling the game.
Yeah, it's a small little closet. You'll get to see Nate and I like rubbing shoulders, sitting in each other's laps. But it's a great angle. As I mentioned, we can look out on the horizon and be off the beach. I joke all the time with Ken Levick. I haven't talked to him in a while because of the scheduling. When I'm old and gray, Ken, I am stealing your job. I'm going to get a for broadcasting in South Florida. It is amazing going down there, and I just coming back with a win though. That would be doubly amazing.
Hey, I guarantee an Owls win. How about that?
There you go. You're one step ahead, man.
You see what I did there?
I do.
Hoping for the Rice Owls, but we'll see how it shakes out. But either way, we'll be back next week talking about the next Rice game. Bye week is over, so we have a furious finish of 7 weeks in a row to see if this season ends as excitingly as we kind of hope it will. So we will sign off for now. Go find us here. Go find us at theroost.com. We're on Patreon. JP is everywhere on the interwebs talking about Rice football too. We're going to have some fun. We got one more game coming up this week, and then we'll go from there. So until then, we're signing off. So we'll see y'all next week. Rice fight.
Never dies.